Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance with Trustee Miller tonight.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Darren. Good news, Mr. Hilton.
All right, thank you, President Lewis. Good evening, trustees. Give me just a second here. I definitely have some good news to share with you this evening. All right, trustees, as we get started here tonight, first up this evening with the good news is some Tecumseh Public Schools band good news. Now, I think you know this. There's been a lot of band activity over the month, from Bandorama to all kinds of concerts. But I also want to tell you about this. It was a visit to the University of Michigan. So earlier this month, some of our fifth grade band students, facilitated by Mr. and Mrs. McKinchak, had the opportunity to visit Ravelli Hall on campus at the university. And while they were there, they had a chance to both hear performances, but also to play and get feedback from instrumental music students at the university. So as part of that visit, they got to tour the building, led by members of the Michigan Marching Band, which is pretty darn cool. And they heard a tuba demonstration from one of the university's graduate students. So all in all, a great day for both the University of Michigan students, as well as a huge benefit to our fifth grade musicians here in Tecumseh. Trustees, you might not know this, but I definitely want to point it out. October is National Principals Month, and in recognition of this month, I wanted to take a moment and express my gratitude for their dedication and service to the Tecumseh Public Schools students, families, and staff. They do this really well. They work tirelessly, and they are a vital group of leaders here in our school system. So many, many thank yous to the principals that we have here running our schools every day. And lastly, tonight, trustees, we all know that learning isn't just about what goes on in the classroom. It can be experiential. So the last time we were together, I shared some information with you about some of our Sutton students who visited Cambria. And I shared a little video. Well, tonight, I'm going to share with you about our Acres students, kindergarten students from Acres anyway, who visited Carpenter Farms and the Tecumseh Fire Department. So rather than just show you some pictures, you know how this works, I've decided to make a short little video again, and you will see the kids as they visited both the Carpenter Farms and the fire department. Give me just a second. All right, pull this up. Okay, here we go. So short video, but wanted to share that with you because, you know, when kids have the opportunity to go visit and learn about what goes on at the farms and learn about what goes on in the fire department and then have some hands-on opportunities, it simply can't be replaced. So, Mr. List, thank you. It's on the north side of Adrian, kind of 223, yeah, off to the east a little bit.
Towards Palmyra.
Pardon?
Towards Palmyra.
There you go. Take Rogers Highway down
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the good news, Mr. Hilton. That brings us to public comment. In accordance with the Open Meeting Act of 1986, the board provides opportunity for citizen input during the public comment. Because agendas are full, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The board will listen, take comments and questions under advisement, cannot respond at this time. The presiding officer will refer questions to the superintendent for research and response. Do we have public comment?
Brian Merritt. I have two sons at the middle school. I don't know if any of you have heard my name yet, but if you have not, it's very surprising. On August 26th, Michelle Dofler, the school therapist, stopped my children from getting on the bus and took them to a private home. Not only has she done that, because she disagrees with me not being there when they get off the bus. Mind you, these are 13 and 12-year-old kids. She took it upon herself to walk into my home, tell my kids that CPS said she could be there, and removed my kids from my house. I've made this known to the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and nothing's been done. This is so far outside of her scope of employment that the school could be held liable for this. And I just don't understand why nobody's doing anything.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name's Anthony Alanis. I never thought one word would hit so hard, but when a dog hollers, you gotta look. Blunder, screw up, mistake, error, call it what you want, but I would think calling attention to that specific word would have been beneath your office. Then again, I've lived here my whole life, and this district continues to surprise me. I'm not here to justify my work. I couldn't care less. With the abysmal board comments made at the end of the last meeting, blunder remains the apt descriptor for the given information at the time. No one's shy of sweating blood for 2 weeks or losing sleep, nor makes public comments about payroll and morale, nor operates in closed session over an accomplishment, especially this district. To dedicate over 10% of your FAQs to one word was frankly, oddly satisfying, yet greatly disappointing. Why waste your words on a throwaway line I picked simply because I love alliteration? Why even comment when there are still so many other questions about what happened you could have answered? Why a closed session? A closed session, mind you, that 2 members of this board did not believe was necessary. Thank you, Heather and Darren, for your continued support toward transparency. It does not go unnoticed. When did you learn that the money spent on student services as of the October 13th meeting was actually spent on legally mandated services for students with disabilities? Because that's different. If no mistakes were made, why are we in such a desperate need for a new director of business services? Why did the last one leave, or was she forced to resign? Why is our business office so unprepared for being this understaffed? Why were no successors lined up? When the auditor found this variance, when did the former director inform the superintendent? If no mistakes are made, why might there be a need to recover funds? From where? Why? How did this happen? If you'll respond to things on social media with FAQs and coy attacks, then you most certainly will respond to questions offered here in public meeting. And if not, someone will write an article about this meeting, find a big, beautiful word to describe it, and hope it results in another FAQ. Or maybe a public response for all instead of a one-on-one behind closed doors. It worked last time, and now we have more questions than answers. Questions I hope we'll get answers to tonight. If you find a word offensive more than your own actions, that's worse than offensive, it's pathetic. Grow up and stop being a victim when nothing was preventing you from issuing any public acknowledgement of the school's financial situation long before anybody wrote anything from a meeting 2 weeks ago. The only thing that's offensive is that it took a couple dorky bloggers who love transparency, accountability, and democracy to use one word that actually resulted in some action from this school. There's still work to be done, but I'm pretty proud of that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Trustee Lewis, can I offer a clarification
Sure,
right now?
sure.
So I first want to thank both public commenters for coming to the podium, and I will follow up directly with each. Trustees, I want you to know that I am fully aware of the situation that Mr. Merrick described. I have been in contact with the Tecumseh Police Department, and while I will not go into details here, I will share you that there is much more here. and I am taking care of this in ways that are appropriate and responsive. Second thing I want to mention tonight is Mr. Alanes's comments around the use of the word blunder. I don't actually necessarily have a problem with that word per se. My challenge is that that word led to many, many rumors and social media posts that further sowed inaccuracies. What occurred with the gentleman from WLEN and the Herald was that I received a phone call to clarify their questions and understand what occurred before they went to print. That did not happen with the bloggers, and I would have appreciated that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, there are no other public comments. We'll move on to revisions and approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented for October 27, 2025.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda from October 22nd, 2025. Roll call vote. I'm sorry, it wasn't October 22nd. It's October 13th. Roll call vote. Trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. On to scheduled reports. Audit report, Mr. Tucker.
Everyone, so I'm actually going to kick it off. My name's Tom. I will be in charge on the audit this year. I was able to help conduct the audit. Obviously, I think we met Bill Tucker before, principal on engagement. Today, we are going to go over some of the highlights of the audit. Before we get started, there should be a couple items you have received already. The first is going to be financial statements, the bound copy of the financial statements. So this has the independent auditor's report. It has the fairly presented financial statements. It has notes to the financial statements. The whole thing is right here. We're not going to go page by page. We don't want to be here all night for you guys. Take your time. You should also have a governance letter. This goes through the significant estimates that are part of your financial statements. It goes through any disagreements with management we might have had. There was none. Any unacceptable statements, that sort of thing. It's required boilerplate language that we have to have. The other last item you should have in front of you is a copy of the slideshow up here. This is essentially a highlight of items that are in the financial statements and items that we thought were most important for you guys to be aware of. So without further ado, if we go to the next slide, this is a summary of the independent auditor's report. So pages 1 through 3 of your bound copy of the financial statements. And there's a couple sections within this independent auditor's report. First is going to be the objective of the audit. So the objective of the audit is to not identify fraud or issue an opinion on the controls around the financial statements. It actually is to issue an opinion on the fairly presented presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted principles. There'll also be a section for management's responsibility, and then a section for auditors' responsibility. The last section is what everyone wants to know, the opinion on the financial statements. So, in our opinion, on your financial statements, which there were 4 opinion units, you have the governmental activities, each major fund, which was the general fund, and the service fund, and then the aggregate remaining funds. We gave an unmodified or clean opinion. This is the highest level of opinion or assurance we can provide for each opinion unit. Numbers.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Tom. All right. So the next page that we're going to turn to is page 13 of your financial statements. Page 13 of your financial statements is your governmental funds balance sheet. The governmental funds balance sheet is a snapshot of your assets, liabilities, and fund balance at June 30th, 2025. This is presented on the modified accrual basis of accounting. So this is the same basis of accounting that you're adopting your annual budgets at, is that modified accrual basis of accounting.
On this page in particular, we do like to look at the general fund, the far left column. And in particular, we like to look at your total fund balance and then also components of that fund balance as well. So if we look at the far left column, second number up from the bottom, you have your total fund balance of $2,857,523. With portions of that fund balance that are considered to be non-spendable. So you do have your prepaid expenses that are just above that, leaving you with an unassigned fund balance, third number up from the bottom, of $2,780,196 that is available for expenditures in future periods. And this dollar amount represents approximately 8.1% of your annual operating expenses. And that does equate to about 14 days worth of fund balance that is available for future periods. If we looked back at last year, just give you an idea of where you kind of stood last year. Last year you're at about 6.7% or about 12 days sitting there in fund balance. And then another thing we do like to look at, just because we do like to compare this across not only your district, but across other districts across the county and across the state as well, just give you an idea of percentage of fund balance. So you're sitting at 8.1%. The county-wide average is 25.7%, and that is the same percentage as it is statewide. So statewide it is also 25.7% on average. So you guys are significantly below that threshold across the county and across the state. Moving on from there to the next page. The next page we have for you is page 15. This is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the year ended June 30th, 2025. Again, focusing on that far left column for your general fund. Starting off at the top of the page with your total revenues, you have total revenues of just over $35 million. That was a decrease of approximately $1.1 million or 3% compared to the previous year. Now, one of the main significant fluctuations that we saw within those revenues was your federal sources of revenue, which were down about $1.2 million. And that was mainly due to the spending of the majority of the remaining ESSER funds and the 11T funds that were spent in the previous year. So ESSER funds, as you remember, that was a lot of the COVID pandemic funding that came through. So obviously you'd spent all those dollars in previous years. Moving down the page to your total expenditures, you have total expenditures of just over $34.2 million. That was a decrease of approximately $1.7 million or 5% compared to the previous year. A lot of those, obviously, with the way obviously schools are set up, a lot of that was related to a decrease in salaries and related benefits, and also a lot of the ESSER funding that you spent in previous years obviously went down as well from some of those grant funds. Results for the year, third number up from the bottom, you added to your fund balance in the dollar amount of $210,123. Now the next page I have for you is a visual perspective of some of those same numbers and analysis of the last 5 years. So if we look at this chart, I know the colors are very difficult for you to even make out, but I would say the left column is kind of a blue. That is your revenues and other financing sources. The middle column is, I guess, purple. That's expenditures and other financing uses, and then the yellow column is your fund balance. So you can see on this chart, 3 out of the last 5 years, your expenditures, the purple, has exceeded your revenues, the blue column. And then you do see that trend there in your fund balance, starting with 2021, going all the way through 2024, where you had that usage of fund balance, and then just that slight uptick in 2025. But that does give you a little bit of perspective of that 8%, so you can see that fund balance at 8% of those total expenditures. The last 2 pages that we have for you are our report on internal control over financial reporting. We did have one comment for you this year. This is on page 50, starts on page 58. So there's a highlighted section on page 58 that talks about that we had one non-compliance matter that was noted in the current year. This is identified in the financial statements as 2025-001, and there is additional details for that on the next page, which is the schedule of findings. The non-compliance issue that we had in the current year, the condition was during our review of the district's compliance with the Budgeting Act, we noted that expenditures had exceeded the amounts appropriated in the general fund. Did have a chance to talk to the Budget Committee, Finance Committee last week about this as well, so good opportunity there. But that is all I had for you. If there's any further questions. Great, thank you.
Okay, next, we have the Budget Committee report.
Yep, so we met on the 20th and called the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. We went over the state aid status update. We finally know that we're going to get $10,050 per FTE. So that, I think that was an increase of about $400 from previous year, which is good. Not enough, but still good. So, and then Steve went over. It was a long meeting. It was like an hour and 45 minutes. So Steve went over. Leonard, he's the new business director. I guess that's the title, correct? Business director?
Director of Business Services.
Director of Business Services. All right, it's in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere.
He went over how he actually goes through and does his reporting to the board, and so he went line by line, but he couldn't be here tonight. But anyway, you're going to get financial statements that are going to feel a lot easier for you to understand. And he went through line by line on everything. So he's still working on this year's budget, the amended budget that we have to do. I think it's in December, if I remember correctly. So he's still getting a grasp on that. And then there's a bunch of reporting requirements that he has to do for the state as well. He went through those as well. So he gave us what's called like a sense check, and it's really this sheet right here. So it'll tell you where we're at cash flow wise and so forth as well. So when he's here next time, he'll go through all this. Are you going to cover some of this tonight now? No. Okay, all right. So he'll go through all this with you, and it'll take a bit, but you'll like it. So we also got the report from Bill and from Manor. He went over that with us. And then Steve again had some monthly reports, cash flow, early warning systems he has, and so forth. So that was really about it. So it was Steve. It was kind of the Steve show for the majority of the show, and then of course the audit findings. So yep. And we adjourned at 6:45.
All right. Finance report.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Lewis. So, Trustee Simpson touched on many of these things, and unfortunately, Trustees Mr. Lenar was not able to be here this evening because he had some other commitments. He did, however, share a few things with me and asked me to share them with you. We're at a place now that we have, finally, an official budget from the state of Michigan. Mr. Lenar's run an updated, and this is one of the things that Mr. Simpson was talking about, an updated revenue projection using the state's various formulas. And his updates included a projection in increased revenue that's largely due to the increase in the per pupil foundation grant that is over what we actually budgeted for. So that's a really, really good thing. Secondly, he is now analyzing the 24-25 expenditures against our 25-26 projected expenditures to ensure congruence, so that we know that if we need to make adjustments, we'll know that soon, and we'll be able to do that via an amendment, probably in early December. Third thing he wanted me to let you know is that he has already filed our annual audit report with the Michigan Department of Treasury. The Treasury has confirmed receipt and acceptance. That's one of the tasks that he needed to get done. The second thing is he is finalizing what's called our annual FID report. The FID, if you don't know, is the State of Michigan's Financial Information Database. It's the official financial reporting mechanism that Michigan schools use to report their financial data to the state. The system collects revenue information, expenditures, assets, liabilities, fund balance. This report is due by November 3, yet we are on track for submission no later than Friday, October 31st. Trustees, I'm getting daily updates from Mr. Lennar, and I will be updating you then accordingly throughout the week, all the way to submission. So that wraps up tonight's financial report, and again, you will get much more in-depth reporting in November when he is with us.
Okay. Parker, you're up.
Hello, board. Sorry, I know this about my report. I will try to be a positive. Within the last week, we just wrapped up our first monthly period of this meeting. And it seems like the freshmen kind of really understand the system of like how grading works, which is surprising because I'm like most of the freshmen, so that's good. Another big positive is SSAC, which is the Student Success Advisement Council, a group of upperclassmen from a diverse array of local interests. Talks to every single freshman in the history class in this library about things they wish they would have known as freshmen, answer questions about foreign policy, attendance, how grades work, and other things like that. And it's like kind of open question forms that freshmen asked. It was mixed opinions and seniors and it's about the arms, that was a really big positive. A lot of freshmen realized the importance of grades. I guess a lot of people realize GPA is every transforming number. It doesn't make sense. A lot of people are no, that's where it starts. So that was good. We hosted a career fair on Thursday the 23rd. We've done a ton of it. I'm sure you guys do that, but there was a ton of different careers here, and students really like a mix of careers that require degrees, trade schools, and no extra education at all. Because a lot of kids aren't planning on going to college and they're posting their parents, so we really enjoy them. Getting to see like people like I know my dad was in the play and he was in the opportunities and stuff. Like different crazy things like that. In terms of more like athletic life, our volleyball and football teams are all looking in postseason ones. Right now our football team is in our first week of playoffs right now, because we're going to take on a child. And our volleyball team is an impressive 45-1 on the season. Crazy. We try to wrap our heads around that. 45 is crazy, but so they're kicking butt like that. We had an awesome homecoming assembly just a few weeks back. We had really cool performance by the cheer team that included a ton of acrobatics and left a lot of us stunned. Like, wow, that was really awesome. So I think a lot of students like got into the performance, which was really cool. And we also had a lot of excitement about the game and the parade, and a lot of high schools were happy that now they could cross the community up so they're not throw. Obviously, no one was chucking the ball. And it was good that we had to go to the parade too. Overall, a lot of students seem prepared and ready going into the second month period, with a lot of students getting excited as we near holiday breaks. Like we had a really fall kids are really excited about
Motivation,
getting the
love
chance
it.
to get there. I know the AP Gold class that went they visited the Arab History Museum recently, which was fun. They had a history book, also chaperone, and my sister was they were really wowed at it. They thought it was a really cool opportunity, and after the fact, they also got to go to the Arab-based grocery store and kind of see like the different kinds of food that you normally wouldn't find, but a lot of them really appreciated and were fascinated by it. That's what a lot of them said. They said it was just really cool and like awesome that to be around so many different things that they
as always.
Then you just go to the other one.
Yeah, so the way that it works is I was teaching us in my class, and back when we were freshmen, we would go, hey, I'm traveling to, we would get a note from the teacher, teacher that we wanted to travel to, saying, she got to do something. It'd be like, Dean Strand, like, talk to him class, I want to travel to your class in summer, that quiz on this. He would let you know, show it to you something, and you could go travel there, or take a test, and that's the same. But now, the test has to be handled through someone, which when it's 25-minute period, the speaker, the teacher is just on opposite ends. They can do the test taken over, or feel like a break for the community, and sometimes it's too short. But it can be able to affect the community. I think a lot of people just say, that they just have to go find out, take the test, and that's it. Rather than spend, waiting to see. Get that free.
I appreciate your accolade you gave your volleyball team. They're 45-1. First loss was the first game.
Who state champ? Last year's who state champ?
And if we had Maddie Van Black, we would be a little better. At least you got to be able to play. It would be a good easy one for that.
And definitely another thing. A lot of kids, I know we're offering it this week for my child, but normally you see it for volleyball and basketball because they're putting very hard for exam courses like the betting offers off, especially for underclassmen who don't come and have to go to the gym. It's a really great opportunity to that a lot of people appreciate to go watch and support them without having to ask them out for a try, spend half their day waiting for me to go watch a game. I know even I'm not even in the classroom basketball. Like it's different environment at school to be surrounded by so many other students in the way. A lot of
Thanks, Tucker. Tucker, I know you are a very busy guy. School, sports, athletics, all the things. If you need to pack up and head out, you are welcome to stay, but no pressure.
Say no more.
Say no more.
You got it.
Thank you, sir.
Hey Tucker, you need to stay here then, because there ain't no way. I know he's happy.
say I did apply to MSU.
Back up.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
And
you.
then, I don't feel
You're committed. Okay.
That report, you get close to her.
I say,
Being close to her is a heck of a thing.
thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
So you're easy. Mr. Hilton, talk to us about Herrick Park.
Sure. Thank you, President Lewis. So, trustees, this information is in your packet as well. We've recently received what I might call a statement of intent or an informal offer on the Herrick Park property. The offer is from LEA Properties out of Adrian with a purchase price of $100,000 for the property. As part of the agreement, the property will be sold in an as-is condition. Further, the proposal is to allow the buyer to opt out of the purchase agreement if the buyers cannot receive satisfactory tax assessments on the property and the approval of planned uses and zoning. The buyer has the right to cancel the purchase if they encounter any unforeseen expenses or unfavorable costs to purchase the property. Again, this is more of a statement of intent than an actual legal purchase agreement. I did have a chance to ask the buyer what he intended to do with the property, and the intended use is the development of a recreation and event center, wedding rental space, shared office space, home improvement, sales rentals, medical office space, things of that nature. So I'm bringing this forward to you this evening for your awareness, in particular your input and any questions. I would advise not accepting these conditions for purchase. Rather, I'd advise, if the board is interested, that I approach this gentleman with a non-refundable down payment with a specific due diligence window for the purchase of this property. Mr. Madison and I would certainly have those discussions on your behalf, and we would provide updates as we go, and certainly there would be no action taken until you were to authorize us to do so anyway. So that's what I know, and that's what I wanted to share with you as a board and get your feedback, questions, next steps, etc. So I'll pause here and open it up for discussion.
I don't think that's a very serious or well thought out plan or offer, I guess, to use all intents and purposes. It's substantially under the market value. It gives them every single possible out possible, and it doesn't sound like there's a clear plan regarding use. And I mean, personally, I don't feel comfortable with this one.
I did have a chance to check with the city, and not that we would do this part, but in checking with the city, many of these ideas do not fit the current zoning requirements.
Thanks for that. That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
It's that, you know, the city said some feedback before, after the fact. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It puts us in a bad situation. So we're better off just going after them until they have to do it.
Yeah.
That would be my
Okay.
Well, and to change that zoning is gonna take probably close to a year.
For sure.
And so if we do decide we've gotta write something in the contract, someone else comes along, yeah,
Yep.
we can take their offer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing the board say is is continue to have some discussions, but ask the gentleman to begin his process with the city before we take any next steps. That way the market stays or the property stays available.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut off discussion there.
No.
Okay.
Not much to discuss.
Okay.
Okay, action items, we have one, the July 25 Thrun policy update that we received from the last board meeting.
I move to approve the Thrun policy updates as recommended by the policy committee on the at the October 13th, 2025 regular Board of Education meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2025 Thrun policy updates. Any other discussion?
Weren't there some options involved in there? I think we just discussed it last time. I don't know.
So yes, there were options, and we landed on not having them in front of me, but we landed on the recommendations from the committee, and that would be the recommendation. That would be the options that you're voting on here this evening.
Okay.
Okay. Roll call vote. Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, which includes minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting of October 13th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded with delay, time fuse on that one, to accept the consent agenda minutes from October 13th, 2025. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Superintendent's report. M. Hilton.
Is it possible to dim the lights right at the screen?
I'm thinking yes. Josh is on it. Okay, so trustees, the long-awaited spring testing data report from Mrs. Way and myself. Trustees, a couple things to note as Ms. Way gets ready to present. You know this, but it's worth repeating. This data is one data point at one point in time, with largely children having one chance to perform well. So while it certainly gives us a sense of achievement, other data points matter too. And so we're going to look at this data tonight. You'll still see some things that we're really proud of. You'll see a couple of things that we already have plans to be working on. So we're going to get into this. Megan's going to share a bunch of data, and then she's going to give it back to me, and I'm going to present the same data, just in a different format. And then we'll go back to Megan for closure, and then you'll have the chance to ask questions. Okay? Take it away.
Okay, so first we're just going to look at our data on the M-STEP, which is the test that we give our 3rd through 7th grade students. And we're also going to look at the PSAT and SAT data, which we give our 8th graders through 11th graders. So we'll look at that compared to how the county does and how the state does. So this should look familiar. It's the same type of format I've used over the past few years as when looking at comparing how we're doing against the county and the state. So we're going to start with ELA, and this is our 3rd grade through our 8th grade. 8th grade takes the PSAT, 3rd through 7th take the M-STEP. So the yellow signifies that we are outperforming both the county and the state. So as you can see, all but 5th grade, we are outperforming the county and the state in our ELA. And the next slide. So math has a little bit of a different look. So we're still outperforming the county in all but 3rd grade. We're typically in the 40s, I would say the high 30s or low 40s for proficiency in math. We do have a little bit of a dip this year, but you know, 3rd grade overall, that's lower than we've seen in a couple of years. So, you know, that was kind of, didn't really like to see that. But last year we were below the state and the county in 4th and 5th grade only, so we did have that dip there in 3rd and in 6th grade. Okay, and then this is our science proficiency and our social studies proficiency. They don't take the science and social studies M-STEP in all of the grades. They only take it in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. So if you look at our science scores there, we did see a slight dip in 5th grade science, which took us below the state average, but 8th grade continues to be well above the county and the state average. You know, we know that once students get into middle school, they have an hour dedicated block a day for science, and we typically see that we have a big increase between 5th and 8th grade consistently. So that is great to continue to see that. And looking at social studies, we are below the state average for the first time in 5th grade in a little while, but we also had a 6% increase from the previous year, so we did make a lot of growth in 5th grade social studies, but still underperforming the state there. And then 8th grade and 11th grade, as you can see, we are outperforming the county and the state. So this is just some trends over time, and this is an average. So this is data that we look at in our district improvement team. We kind of set some goals for our district, and we don't set them individually by grade level, but rather we set an overall average proficiency goal. So we have been keeping track of this over time. In 5th grade, we are a slight dip down, but still maintaining in the 50s. The state does have a target of 56% proficiency, so we aren't too far off of that. You know, we are maintaining in the 50s for ELA. In math, the state does have a proficiency target of 43%. We've had a slight uptick upwards, but last year we did have a slight dip, and I think that, you know, was primarily due to our decrease in 3rd and in 6th grade math from last year. And the next one. So this is just a look at science and social studies, the same type of data, just taking an average there. So even though we've had a slight dip in science, we still are maintaining pretty consistent levels in the 40s. And then as you can see with social studies, we have really over the past several years made some great increases in social studies. And now there isn't such a big wide difference between our science and social studies scores. They're starting to even out a lot more, which is great. Closing that gap there. But really, this is the SAT score. So the SAT is the test that our 11th graders take, and really this is the culmination. You know, we may see some ebbs and some flows between 3rd grade and 11th grade, depending on different cohorts of students, curricular changes, but really, you know, where kind of push comes to shove, where it matters is this 11th grade SAT score. It's got a little bit higher stakes. And as you can see, we are in the orange, the state is in the blue. We are well outperforming the state on our SAT scores. So on the left, we have our reading and writing, a 71% proficiency last year. That is really, really impressive. In math, we're at 40%, and then overall at 40% as well. So those are students who passed, or were proficient on both ELA and in math. So this is something really to be proud of. It really is a good picture of the whole K-12 experience for our students. And when they get to us and get ready to leave us, they're doing pretty well on this state test. So the next slide shows just the comparison again between Tecumseh, Lenawee, and the state. As you can see, we are doing well, outperforming by a lot, you know, the county and the state in the SAT data. Something to really be proud of.
Is proficiency still the same expectation for the SAT of 56%?
Yes, those are the state targets for ELA, but proficiency, the 50th percentile, that score of a 1050 is kind of like where we want to see most of our kids performing at that 50th percentile. So a little bit different criteria than the M-STEP, but when we look at our goals as a district, we still use that 56% benchmark as our goal. And this is just an increase. I wanted to show this from 2023 to 2024. These are a different group of kids. So this 23-24 would be our now seniors, and or 24-25, I'm sorry, would be our now seniors. But these are two different groups of kids here. But we did see very big increases in both reading, writing, and in math, and overall proficiency with our students from one year to the next. So this is something to really celebrate as well.
Megan, I have a question.
Yes.
How does Tecumseh compare for the prep of SAT compared to other schools in the county? I know some schools take a week and do prep classes to get them ready for it.
Yes, so each class has their own. When we look at doing pacing guides and different things like that, we talk about putting that SAT prep in there for 11th grade. So they are practicing and have some time leading up the months before to practice some of those questions that they might be seeing. So all of the courses do that in 11th grade for those content areas. We also this year, for the first time this year, had all of our 9th and 10th graders take the PSAT and 11th graders. So they took the whole PSAT this fall, which research and data has shown that if they take the test one time and then they do it again, they do a lot better. So it was a lot to coordinate and get ready for the fall, the first couple of weeks of school, but we're really hoping that we're going to see that make a huge impact in the spring as well. So that's something that we've added this year to help get all students ready for the SAT.
One more question. All students have to take the SAT?
Yes, it's part of state compliance that we have to take all state testing. Mm-hmm. There is no like opt-out process. Mm-hmm. I think Mr. Hilton went over the AP data at the last board meeting, but this is just another recap of the amount of students that we had that were in AP courses and how they did. They did an amazing job. Our kids do a really great job in AP. We offer so many different classes and exams, and we have a pass rate of 85%. So that's pretty amazing. I think you went through that last meeting, though. Yeah.
Okay, so trustees, I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to share this same data with you, except you're going to see it. It's going to be represented differently than the way that Megan just represented. But before I do that, is there any questions that you have now, given anything that Ms. Wade has said?
I just had
go ahead.
one question in my mind. So when we get the data for Tecumseh schools, is there a way to compare Tecumseh schools versus other schools our size in the state, so it's not just a state average? Can we get that?
Yeah, so there's actually a group that I'm a part of in the county, and we call it our peer data comparison group. So we take 9 other district, or it's actually by county, but we take 9 other counties with a similar demographics, size, poverty rate, and we look to see how we compare. And we did that, we spent a whole year on that last year, and we're pretty comparable, but we do a little bit better in science and a little bit worse in math. So that's kind of, I would say, the overall thing that we noticed in the county. But yes.
I'm glad we have that.
Yeah, we have those, we did it by county, but not by district, but very similar demographics across the county, so.
For our scores, are you receiving that by student, or can you identify the student? Okay, so we could maybe drill into that a little bit deeper and maybe compare that to teacher and school assessments as, they transition between buildings.
Yeah, and the departments do that. They look at their student by student. Miss Irish has them literally go student by student and see how they did in whose class. And if there's no judgment, it's just like, let's see if we're noticing any trends or patterns. So we do get that granular in our department meetings here at the high school, which has been nice.
Megan, we have 85% of kids here that take AP classes.
85% passage rate, yes.
How does that compare to dual enrollment? What are the kids, you know that, I mean, if you don't know, is that something you look at? I mean, the kids who take dual enrollment have 90%.
They don't have to pass a class.
What's that?
They don't have to pass a class.
They just get
They have to
credit.
pass the class.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a different method.
Not really, you get credit if you don't.
You can still get credit for the class and not take the test for AP.
I know that, but I'm saying if you dual enroll, how do you get these not dual enroll, how do you get college credit for classes?
Yeah, I mean, we could look at that. We're actually looking at that, the cost of both. We did that a little bit last year, where we were trying to compare the cost of dual enrollment versus AP classes. Like, where do you get the most bang for your buck? Hiring more teachers and offering more AP, or allowing students to go and dual enroll? We're also looking at, for students who aren't taking a math course here their junior year, how are they doing on the SAT their junior year? So we're trying to really see, we just started really digging deep into that. A group of teachers here at the high school, the coaches, started looking at that data. So we're hoping to have some more information to share on that, because really it comes out of a point of like cost analysis, but we also want to know, if kids are dual enrolling, are they doing as well as our kids that are here with us in the building for 11th grade math and ELA and things like that.
I'm not really worried about the economic stuff, it's just the comparison on
Yeah,
well,
I think
they're
most of our
entirely
kids are
different
passing.
curriculums too. Sometimes AP classes are much more rigorous. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit like comparing apples and oranges.
Not the way I see it. You either get credit or you don't.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Okay, so trustees, I'm going to show you this same set of data, except you're going to see it differently, and rather than compare grade level performance from year to year, i.e. different groups of kids, we're going to take a look at cohorts of students to see how they perform year after year in ELA and math. So what you'll see is a bar graph that visually represents the percentage of students who are achieving proficiency levels on these standardized tests over time. So when you look here, this is English Language Arts performance. Now remember, this is a change, this does represent some change here in MSTEP to PSAT to SAT, but it is the same group of kids. So ideally, we want to see increases from year to year and an overall trend, upward trend of proficiency. So you can largely, and I'm going to explain it here to you in just a second, you can largely see that in our data with some ups and downs. So, for example, except that you can't see my cursor. All right, so if you put your eyes for me on the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade cohort, that is the same group of kids' performance on this test from year to year to year to year. So what you're noticing is from 5th grade to 6th, a slight tick up, 6th to 7th, 7th to 8th. Those kids are trending as a whole group upwards over time in proficiency on these exams. You largely see that in 6th through 9th. You definitely see it through 7th through 10th. The 8th through 11th cohort, they did have a slight downtick as 11th graders. If you go to the visuals all the way to the left, you'll notice 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. That, as 3rd graders, they performed, they increased a little as 4th graders, fell off as 5th, and are recovering at 6th. So as trustees, there will always be some fluctuations in performance. It's a one-time test. But what this data is telling us is that by and large, with fluctuations from year to year, kids as a cohort are improving in proficiency levels on these exams, which is exactly what we want to have. Let's take a look at math. Evidence-based reading and writing, evidence-based reading. Okay. So, let's start with the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade cohort. Again, you're seeing a nice trend upwards. The 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, that is an awesome trend in improving proficiency from year to year to year to year. If you're looking at 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, so that's going the opposite way. So this data tells us that we know we have some work to do with that cohort of children. So let me pause here. I know this is the first time you're seeing it this way. Is this making any sense? So Megan is going to come back on and tell you where we're intervening and how we're intervening, but before we do, is there any questions? Those are probably the next sets of questions. Okay.
Okay, so when we look over both the achievement data and then looking at our patterns, a few things kind of stood out. So we're noticing this early middle school decline. So it really is early middle school, but late elementary. 4th and 5th grade really are kind of late elementary grades. So over time, we have seen this early middle school decline. So we do show performance drops in that later elementary, early middle school grade, particularly in math during the 4th and 5th grade transition period. But we also see this middle school recovery. So we do see this dip in 5th grade, but we see significant improvement patterns emerging in later middle school years, especially in ELA. And then what the trend data shows us is that we have this high school stabilization. So these in the upper grades, kids have regained a little bit in middle school. They've maintained and continued to stabilize in high school with state assessment data. So we noticed that there are some, just another way to look at the previous slide that I just shared, but there are some critical transition points. So that elementary to middle school, this could be indicating to us a critical intervention point. So when we look at the data, we know that this 4th, 5th grade decline is a critical intervention point for us. We also know that students are progressing 7th and 8th grade and just demonstrate recovery patterns. And then when they get into high school, they are really stabilizing with continued growth. And really in 10th and 11th grade, they do pretty well and have showed sustained performance increases in meeting those proficiency levels. Yep. So here's some just recommendations as we look through the data. What are we going to do about that? So overall, here's just a few things that we are going to be looking at or have started looking at. So targeting elementary math support, particularly in those grades 3 to 5, that upper elementary, early middle school, those grades, making sure that those foundation skills are solid and we're eliminating some of those gaps before they get into more complex middle school math. Strengthen our transition support there, I just mentioned that, and then leveraging that middle school momentum. So what are we doing there? Why are we seeing such great growth and momentum there? Is there anything that we could replicate down in the 4th and 5th grade and 6th grade areas? And then sustaining our high school excellence. We want to continue what we've been doing because our kids are doing really well on the ACT, that's an old one, SAT when they get into 11th grade. So what we've done so far, if we go to the next slide, is we have a comprehensive plan for math interventions and support that we've started. So we do have kindergarten through 3rd grade math interventionists. They work directly with me. We identify students who are going to need math intervention and support. The teachers give recommendations, and then we also have criteria from our assessments that we're using. And they are using a research-based math intervention, a recovery intervention called Delta Math. So they just started that last year. They're in the 2nd year of implementing that, and it's going pretty well. It's all about So if they're a third grader and they're below, it goes back and revisits the 8 to 10 key power standards that are in the previous grade to make sure that they have those standards before they're getting into that tier 1 grade level instruction. We've also identified K through 4 math, professional development as our focus for 25-26 for our elementary teachers. So this isn't necessarily like how to better use our curriculum, but this is really best practices in teaching mathematics to young students. So a lot of time with our elementary people, they don't specialize in math much as a secondary person would. You know, that's their passion. They take a lot of courses on it. Elementary people kind of are a jack of all trades. You know, they have to teach many subjects. So not a lot of people have had that intensive math instruction themselves in college to prepare them. So we're kind of taking a look at doing some intervention or professional development differently for them and focusing on math instruction and best practices. We're actually starting that this week at our PD day on Friday. So excited to do that. And then we also adjusted our middle school intervention and supports model. So that 4th and 5th grade age band that we were talking about, we've noticed that that's an area where we need a little bit more support. So what we're doing this year is 2 days a week. Our 4th and 5th grade teachers are supporting each other. So 5th grade teachers are supporting 4th grade teachers, and 4th grade teachers are supporting 5th grade teachers. They identify a group of students that need a little extra math support, and 2 days a week during this extra chunk of planning time that these teachers have in their schedule, they are working in the classroom directly with students on math intervention. So we've started that and really excited to see how that goes. And then we also have a math interventionist at our middle school, and she works primarily with our 6th through 8th grade students in a study skills class that we've implemented. So not every student is in study skills. Certain students are identified to take that course, and it's really about like recovery and catch up and making sure that they're getting the extra support that they need. So our math interventionist is a part of all those study skills classes and helps support students who are struggling in math. And then, of course, we are undergoing our math curriculum review this year. We are looking at all of our K through 12 math curriculum. We're looking at data. We're diving deep into the data. We're noticing trends. We've done like some standards analysis from the M-STEP, and also at the secondary levels, we have our own standards from our common assessments that we're looking at, identifying if our curriculum is doing what it's intended to do, and what, you know, if we're noticing anything that is lacking. So we've just kind of started that process for this year, but we will be, by the end of the year, making some curriculum recommendations. It could be maintaining the same curriculum that we've been using, or it could be, you know, something that they want to try different. So we've just really started that process, and I will update you as that continues.
What's the math curriculum for
4th grade is Curriculum Associates, Ready Math, and 5th grade is Reveal Math. So that they switch curriculums. There's a K-4 curriculum, and then there's the 512 curriculum.
Megan, I have a question just from a program, like the math program. Do the high school teachers ever have a chance as a whole math program in the school get together with the middle school and be able to explain to them what they're seeing as these freshmen are coming in and give them ideas, help build that up, prepare them?
Yes, so that is part of the curriculum review process.
Okay.
So, and then, so the high school department head and the middle school department head and the elementary curriculum lead meet with me. We just met today, actually. We meet once a month, and we start talking about those things that we're noticing. Those conversations come up during that time, and then they kind of report back to their department. But part of curriculum review is looking at vertical alignment, so alignment from kindergarten through 12th grade. So one of those meetings, they will be getting together and kind of talking about those things. If they're noticing a particular gap in a skill, we're going to be starting to look at the progression. So like what standards build upon each other that we need to know about, because if there are any gaps there, that could really have a domino effect. So yes, they do have an opportunity to do that throughout the curriculum review. So that's our plan. There's our data, there's our plan.
Thank you, Megan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, items scheduled for next agenda, Mr. Hilton.
So certainly trustees will have some good news. We are going to also bring forth the Q2 strategic plan update. You'll hear from the directors in regards to the things that we've been doing over the last few months. And I'm sure there will be more that's just not in my head right now, but yes.
Gotcha. It doesn't say board. Okay, any board comments tonight?
I have several, but I'd like to go last, please.
Okay, anybody else has board member comments or discussion?
No, I did a couple things. I'm glad to see Tucker here. I think it's so important for us to hear from that level of the organization, I'll call it, and take that in. That's what drives our schools. So it's nice that he feels comfortable enough to get comments and on the comments made tonight, I know it's tough for all of us, and we're in a tough situation. I respect everything everyone's doing. I know it's been hard, a lot of questions we've asked, the finance side, and I think it's starting to come to fruition that we know that we've got some things we got to work on, and that's okay. I mean, I've said that all along. That's pretty normal in life. But being transparent with it and being clear, I do hope at some point we can have a little bit more detailed report on this, the exact issues and how we're going to take action. I think that's important not only for us, but also for the community. It sounds like there's a lot of passion out there, so we'll get to that point, but it does take time. It's not quick. It's losing our Kelly, and just everything. It's going to take time, right? That's got to be happen.
Right. I have quite a lot of comments, and I would also like this to be a little bit interactive. Like, if you don't understand what I'm saying, if you can just raise your hand, I'll make sure that we clarify before we move on. First, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me clearly. Okay, because I'm having a little bit hard time hearing everyone. Mr. Hilton, do you possibly have the electronic audit report, or if you guys can turn to, well, if you can pull that up, possibly page 46. And you guys can flip to yours, it'll be a little bit easier to see in front of you. This is kind of the main variance report here. So I just wanted to take some time to explain things since Steve is not here to cover some of this information. We do still have some gaps that we need to outline, but this is my best attempt to explain what's going on here. I appreciate the involvement and interest from the community, as well as your time tonight to listen to this. So this is kind of my best attempt here. So I'm going to kind of ask if you guys understand things as I go through this. So I wanted to take a little step back and just talk school finance 101, just make sure everyone's kind of level set. So regarding fiscal years, most of you here on the board know that the school's budget runs from July 1st through June 30th. There's a disconnect with the state of Michigan, which has a fiscal year of October 1st through September 30th. So that causes a little bit of challenges in the budgeting process. Moving on from there, some important dates outside of that to remember are that schools must submit their budgets for the following year by June 30th. While the state of Michigan is technically required to submit their final budget bills to the governor by July 1st, that did not happen this year until October 2nd, and then it took a number of days after that to get it finalized and distributed. So that was causing some challenges here as well. And then lastly, the school must submit the financials and audit to the state by November 1st, in this case because of the weekend. It's technically November 3rd, but if that is not done, then we risk losing funding. So that is an extremely important date in addition to submitting budgets by June 30th, which is the same penalty. Is everyone okay with that?
We all know this, we all know this.
So the school budget rules are really outlined by a couple of points. Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, which outlines the accounting rules. A balanced budget. Balanced budgets are required. Budgets must have a positive excess of revenues or over expenditures, which in the business world is basically your income. So you have to have a positive income at the end of the day. And then lastly, no spending without prior authorization. With the whole federal shutdown, you may have heard a lot about appropriations and how Congress appropriates expenses, and that's very similar here to the schools. So basically, this has to do with the budget and then following budget amendments. So schools are also a little bit different from the business world in that usually in the business world you have a budget. You set at one point before your fiscal year ends, and then you have forecasts, usually on a monthly basis, to kind of true that up over time. So you still have kind of the stick in the ground and then move on. But with the language associated with schools is that everything is a budget. So you start with a budget at the beginning, and then you have budget amendments throughout the process, and then at the end you have a final budget amendment that is done in preparation for the budget for the next year. So language kind of becomes confusing, and what are you comparing to, and it becomes a little so at the end of the day, expenses must be appropriated by the board. And so the last appropriation is that final budget that we do before the end of the year. And then what also happens after that point in time, so after the June 30 financial statements are done, expenses from July and August, a lot of the expenses in those time periods are allocated back to the prior year's fiscal statement. So that also creates kind of a gap in time, and it's a blind sight, really, honestly, because there's a bunch of adjustments that are done in the process. So the reason that happens is, for example, teachers, they get paid every month versus just the months that they work. So those monies are reallocated back to the year in which they worked. So that's kind of the main issue is around staff. And then what's really important here and why it's important this year is that final budget is used by the auditors, and it was used in this case, in this finding, to determine if the school complies with the prior authorization. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but that was the main linchpin, and that was the main thing for this year. So it was about expenses, and it was about final budget versus actual, and that's what derived the finding for this year. And I'll go over that a little bit more. The only other kind of rule that we have is an internal rule around board guidelines for a 12% fund balance as a percentage of a portion of the revenue. Other schools tend to use as a percentage of operating expenses, as was referenced in the audit report today. This is kind of looking at it different, and then the state treats it different versus kind of how the auditors look at it, or how someone maybe operating the budget understands it. Any questions there? Okay, so if we're looking at the 24-25 audit, which you have up here, you'll see original, final, and actual columns with a variance, and that variance is between the final and the actual expenditures. So just to give a little bit of a timeline, the audit process began, and then the auditors notified the Director of Business Services of about a $1.2 million variance. The auditors didn't provide as much guidance around the direction regarding how what the variance was or how it was derived. But the team was able to quickly find a few sources of some of those variances, and that cut that balance down pretty substantially. However, for 24-25, there is still a $723,980 variance. If you can scroll down to the bottom, I just want to highlight that. So it's generally been talked about as 750. I just wanted to be very specific. So in that final column at the bottom, you'll see negative 723,980, and that is a variance between the final budget that was done in June versus our actual performance for the year, and it's the net change in fund balance. So basically, the variance in essentially income, if you're going to talk in the business world. So of additional note is that I mentioned about the expenses. So you'll see total expenditures about halfway up that page of negative $362,805. So that is our total variance between our final budget and the actual budget. And that's important because that's the finding in the audit report, that specific number. the 362,805 variance was flagged as an audit finding, as I mentioned, and you can see that in the audit report on page 59, which is already posted on the probably on Mutuals by now, right?
It might be, but no, I don't think it is, because we would report it until it becomes official.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it will be very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to see that, and we'll go over that here in a second. Any questions on that so far?
We know this.
Yeah, are you referring to us?
Yeah.
Well, a little bit, because there's been differences in what people are saying, and there's a little bit been mixing and matching of apples and oranges between talking about different measurements. So I just want to make sure that the numbers are clear to us and
Crystal
everyone
clear
else.
to us. So I
Great.
think you can keep
Perfect.
reporting to us.
I'm going to move on to
This was I thought you were doing this to clarify for the public.
both,
Okay.
because there's been some internal confusion on those numbers as well. So for the 24-25 performance, so this is going beyond the audit. This is the 24-25 performance. We do still have questions in this area, but the original budget, as I mentioned, was set on 6/30 of 2024 versus actual, and that's what we're looking at. So we overshot revenue projections by $1,489,465. And that is primarily due to the state category, and a lot of those variances, so there was an increase in the foundation allowance, but there were other changes to restricted fund categories. There were a lot of changes regarding the MIPSers, which is the retirement plan. And so that caused a majority of that variance in the revenue from the original budget.
Can I ask a quick question? The foundation allowance, did you say that there was an increase?
I think there was an increase last year.
It was flat.
It was flat?
There was $0 for 24-25 to the foundation allowance last year.
Okay.
I want to do a
Thank
point
you.
of order here. This report should come from our financial people. We as board members do not go in and do this work. You should wait until Steve comes back and he can report all these things, because right there we had a little mistake misrepresenting what's going on. So I really believe that this needs to come from the staff that work in this building, do these numbers, and report it to the public, not board members. Board members do not do the work of the district. MASB 101.
Well, MASB 101 is also that we have oversight on this, and
we do.
I don't think that has taken place.
Well, it has. We had an audit. That was the oversight. They found a discrepancy. We reported it. But now, Steve will do the reporting from here out, just like Kelly was. So we don't get in the weeds. I'm sorry. That's just not a role of the board member.
To be clear, I will be getting in the weeds when there's any concern about oversight and understanding where the numbers are coming from.
Well, you had those discussions, presented myself and that,
Hmm?
So at some point, I agree with you. All we do, our job here is set policy, hire one person. Tim's point, the audit came off, there were problems found, they don't specifically tell you what they are, just what you expect. And then there you have to wait for the month to pass. Now, I'm not trying to throw anybody off the trail, it's just, the numbers are up. I mean, you can see where the money's misspent, or missed on what was projected, but that's not what we aren't, nobody here is TPA, nobody here is a search, there's a public accountant, so I don't think we should be doing anything where I can stand up and say, I was the curriculum director for 3 years for science, and give it to the report my mind.
Well, we have not provided an explanation for what has happened, which will occur next month. It will occur a detailed bridge of what happened here for 24-25. That will be occurring next month, in addition to obtaining updated financial formats from Steve.
Right.
I do appreciate your passion.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not about passion. If we don't provide answers for another month, this is going to become a big mess. And I'm trying to provide financial transparency. There's nothing that isn't on this page. It's just explaining what happened when our part-time financial person is not available to be presenting this himself.
Well, Mr. Hilton, can you have Steve put a report together and then share it?
absolutely.
Perfect. Very good.
I agree with that. What you're trying to do is honorable. It's not like they're saying bad things about it. It's not what we're doing for them.
Okay, well, someone needs to provide some facts and some context here. I'm guessing if I went around the room and asked why and an explanation of how we got to the finding, I don't think I would get the same answer. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is make sure that everyone is on the same page.
We get our new financial person, Steve, our part-time new financial person.
If that's the case, then I don't expect any misstated financial numbers coming out of any other board members' mouths, because that is what is happening. Because there's a misunderstanding of what is happening. I'm not saying that it's intentional.
It's time to call this meeting to close.
I understand that. I do. And it's been confusing through this whole thing because the numbers.
I'm sorry this is a difficult conversation, but this is a conversation that needs to be had.
It's inappropriate. That's what it is at this moment.
I can speak just from ignorance, but yeah, I am. What's hard for me is I guess I can't say that I understand what's going on yet as a board member. I think it happened on October 13th with the audit. And like I said, I know you can't turn things around. I understand it. But the key point is that we do understand it, that we can all be on the same page before it's reported by random meetings in here, voices, to make sure the facts are right. So I do understand what she's coming to, and I do think that's important. Is this the right way to do it? I thought we were supposed to have discussions in here, so I thought it was okay. I think it's okay, but and not always are we going to like what we have. The opinion, I don't know if the opinion's right or wrong. I understand what the team's saying. I'm not a financial expert, but it would be nice to have one voice and know what's going on. And I know Matt's struggling with that himself, and it's hard, right? I understand that. So hopefully we get to the point where we have a good report. We're all on the same page. We're probably not going to like it. And I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like it, but at the end of the day, it's where we're at, and we're going to fix it. That's our job, is to fix it. And I think that's the point. But I do understand why she's trying to do it, because there is a little bit of confusion out there. And as a board member, it's kind of frustrating, not to be able to explain when someone comes up or to say, hey, give someone a call. But I know it's a situation where
I agree the passion's there and maybe the expertise, but the final word on this is gonna come from whoever's our chief financial. Now, or something else, or her, whoever. It'll be Steve in the interim, we'll figure somebody else in here.
move on, and the questions in that area will remain. I'm going to move on, and the questions will remain in that area, and someone else can address them. That means I'm going to stop the presentation that you asked me to stop. And I have a few other comments. I'd like to offer a reminder that also per training, all members sitting at this table are not to engage in social media responses, especially in a confrontational manner. There was another comment by the community about the reason for the closed meeting on 10/13, and I just wanted to clarify it because it felt a little bit lacking. The official reason that was read for the meeting was pursuant to PA 267 of 1976, Section 81H, to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by the state and federal statute. The sub-reason for that was to review a written legal opinion. And there was also a note about a comment that was made by Ms. Willis in the last meeting. In my whole time here in Tecumseh, I remember only one time when we had this type of situation. And I just wanted to, I'm not sure exactly what situation you were talking about, but I think you had good intentions. I just wanted to make sure that the issue that we had here was not substantially different than we've had. It just got out of proportion. So the issue is that we had an audit finding, which we have had audit findings for the past several years. And that's a little bit normal process as far as the accounting process. The ideal is to have no findings, but findings help us get better. And I looked at reports since 2022, and there were findings in each year. I can explain those differences if someone else can. You can look at them up in the different audits if you want to, but another point is that in 23 and 24, we also overspent our final estimated expenditures, and but they were $194,970 and $136,231 versus this year experiencing $362,805, at which point the auditors deemed it material, and thus it became a finding. I also have had a heavy heart with all of the things that have been going on in the economy and living life, and I think it will begin to impact our students and employees and stakeholders in even more detail as the days tick on. But in addition to the federal employee furlough with no pay, potential job loss, we don't, I think, have a substantial amount of federal employees here versus some other places, but it still has an impact and trickle down. GM is cutting staff substantially, which may impact family members. There's been a lot of talk, and this is very heavy, about the SNAP benefits not being paid. Food is foundational, and it is impacting more than 11% of Lenawee County. So I'm not sure if the CLC has been involved even more regarding meal supplements or something like that, but there's a bunch of efforts going around the community. And then further complicated by prohibitive increases likely for health care and then the impacts on Medicaid. I did want to end on a positive note. I've had an opportunity to participate and witness a lot of really great experiences for our kids and staff and community. Specific to homecoming, I really kind of took that to heart. I have an 8th grader as well as a 10th grader, so I got to see both of them involved in some of the activities, which were really special. Mrs. Smith really went out of her way to arrange an 8th grade picnic. She kind of took that upon herself, and it was executed flawlessly. Mayor Don even showed up to cook some hot dogs, so that was nice. Following immediately following that, I got to actually see one of the pep rallies for the 4th through 8th graders, and I was really inspired by the fact that they made the games that they did competitive for everyone. So even like the 4th graders could win, and were winning. So that was really great. We also played a pizza box game, which I've kind of locked in my memory for future times, where you basically had to balance a pizza box and then people had to knock it off, and it was like last man standing. That was really great, and honestly could be applicable for any age groups. Then I got to watch the homecoming parade immediately after that, and so I got to sit with my 8th grader and then watch the high schooler march through. So that was really great. A lot of effort goes into making that very special from everyone that's involved in there. So appreciate that. As I tend to represent or speak a lot to the music program, I did want to address a couple things. Mr. Hilton already addressed Bandorama and High School Glow Show, which is also represents the first concerts of the year. And I mean, if you're watching that, it's the 5th graders who've been playing their instruments for 5 weeks, and that's in between anything, you know, school might be out or whatever. So it's not even a full 5 or 6 weeks. So it's an outstanding thing if you ever get to go to that. The marching band competition, marching band competes. Well, they went to Chelsea as well, but the marching band competition for Lenawee County was really impressive. Not only did the band put on a good show, but they also were the last to perform. And by last to perform, that means they were the biggest school in the county that for band performers, and that was really impressive and shocking, actually. So. And with the wrap on the home football games, you can see the band at the next holiday concerts, and then the marching and the Christmas parade. I also had the chance to see the choir concerts, and I was really moved. The songs that Mr. Simon selected were very beautiful and joyful songs, and you could just see the joy coming out of him and how it impacted his students. And honestly, I would like to just go and sit in his room and absorb that someday. And then lastly, the orchestra concerts. Those were a lot of work. Those are costume concerts, and not only do the students dress up, but the teachers do as well. I forget how many costume changes, I think 20 some or something like that for Mrs. Marr. That is really her thing. She really goes all out on that, and she tries to surprise the students, so that's really impressive. And then, honestly, I have to bring attention to it, but Mr. Pinchek, maybe I don't see him in his daily teaching, but he's a little bit more straight-laced, but he came out in like a Superman costume. He had like a dark punk rocker wig on, and he kind of like hammed it up a little bit, so it was kind of nice to see his other personality there shining through. So that's it. Thanks.
Any other comments from anybody? All right, if there's no other questions or comments tonight, call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn, second. Anybody, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 7:40.